Hi, I'm Hannah from Singletrackworld.com and I'm here today to talk to you about that thing we don't really want to think about, and that is having your bike stolen and bike security. Now, it's a sad fact that if thieves are determined enough, they are going to get your bike. With the right tools and the right amount of time, they're going to get through your shed roof, through your wall. I mean, we've seen it all. Bike shops have had walls dismantled. I've had bikes taken off me in the street by a masked man in a car that drove off with two bikes hanging off the side of his car. I mean, you don't expect that, do you? You should think about insuring your bikes. Even if you haven't spent a fortune on them, the inconvenience of having to replace one might well be worth the insurance. If you spent a fortune on one, you definitely want to insure it, because bikes these days can cost 4, 5, even up to 10 grand, especially if you've got an e-bike. So once you've insured your bike, you've got to make sure that you're locking it up in a way that the insurance company is going to go, yep, we'll pay out if the worst does happen. So the first thing that they are going to probably require is that you lock your bike up to a fixed point. That means in your shed or your garage having something like a ground anchor or wall anchor. So you can't see the wall anchor that I've got at home because it's anchored to my wall. But I think that if you've got a solid wall, that's the most convenient solution, because it puts your fixed point at top tube height. So you can use a relatively short lock or chain to reach your anchor point. Whereas one like this that I've got here is a ground anchor, and that is going to be on the ground, and then you're going to have to somehow get from the ground through your frame, which you're probably going to get it higher up, and that's a bit more difficult. So you're going to have a chain instead of a lock, and it's just kind of fiddly to get in about there, and you don't want to have to bend over. So if you've got a wall that you can anchor it to, then great. I think that's your best solution. However, if you've got a wooden shed with a concrete floor, you definitely want to be putting these things into the concrete floor, because your wooden shed is just not as strong as your anchor point. So this one here is from Kryptonite, and it's called the Stronghold, and it is $99.99, and it's designed so that you can drive over it. If it's on your garage floor, it's nice and rounded, and it's not going to do you any damage, or your car any damage. The one that I've got at home from Oxford Products is like 23 quid, so a lot more basic. It's like a big metal staple, but yeah, a lot cheaper. Once you've got your fixed anchor point, the next thing that an insurance company is probably going to require is that you use a Sold Secure gold standard lock or chain. Now, Sold Secure is an independent rating system, and they check the standard of locks. Now, obviously, a lock can meet Gold Secure standard, and they could possibly go beyond as well. But what I've got here are a selection of locks and chains that are all Gold Secure standard. So these would all meet the requirements of those insurance companies. First one I've got here is the hip lock. Now, it's the hip lock EDX kit that I've got here. So it's the DX D-lock, and it comes with this big chain. Now, it's designed for like an e-bike. So it's designed to be portable when the weight doesn't matter. But what we've got is a substantial D-lock, which is quite short. So a good thing about this lock is that it has a kind of clip, so you can put it on your back pocket and you can ride around with it, and you can use this as a D-lock if you want to. Or you can use it with the chain. But as a D-lock, it's slightly compromised by its length, especially if you've got a sort of fat tubed carbon fibre mountain bike. You're probably going to struggle to get that around some street furniture and your tube. So that's a bit of a downside there. But this chain rather, has a nice coating, and it's fixed in place, so that coating doesn't slip, so there's no chance of you scratching your frame. And then the ends are also rubber coated as well. And these ends are larger than the rest of the chain, So you can either pass the chain through itself, which is useful if you need a little bit more reach. So if you've got your fixed anchor point here on the street and you need the reach to get out here, that's handy. Or what it's actually designed for is putting around your waist, passing through itself, use the lock, and you hold it in place. Now, you wouldn't want to go for a long ride like that, but if you're nipping into town with the kids and you've got a few bikes to lock up, or you're on an e-bike, then that's a good solution. So I really like kind of substantial quality of that lock. I like how all the protection to stop you scratching your frame stays in place. And it's £115, so I don't like that so much because that's quite a lot of money. And if we look at this lock here and chain from Yale, this is their Maximum Defender chain. You get a little teeny tiny lock, which isn't going to double up as a D-lock. And you get a chain, which is also gold secure standard, has smaller rings on the end, and the protection doesn't go all the way around the end. And this protection, although it's got some little bits of Velcro to hold it in place, I find it does tend to slip down and expose more of the chain. So you've got a little bit more of a scratch risk there. This is a huge 1.8 metres long, do a shorter one as well. So for £70 there, you're getting the same standard of security as you get with a hip lock. You get a longer chain, slightly fewer functionality features, but that might not matter to you if all you need is to lock it up in your garage. Then I've got a couple of D-locks and U-locks here. These are a little better for carrying around down the street. And this one from Yale, their Maximum Defender lock, this is $35.99. And this New York lock from Kryptonite, which is substantially heavier, is $114.99. So the same standard or minimum standard of gold standard secure, but they have quite a different feel to them. You know, the New York lock really does feel heavy and substantial, whereas there's a few more plastic components on the Yale. But if all you're trying to do is comply with what your insurance company wants, then the Yale gives you that at a much lower price than the Kryptonite. It's also a bit lighter, so for carrying out and about, if you've got other things to carry, that's a better option. This one is a chain and lock all in one. Now it's from Abus, and I bought this myself quite a number of years ago, and it's still functioning perfectly well. The casing is all still there, so there's no rips or holes in that, so it's still protecting the chain from the bike. And I think it was about 50 quid, and that was a gold secure standard one as well. It's nice and not too heavy, reasonably portable too. I mean, you wouldn't want to do a big mountain bike ride with it, but it's not bad. So there's another option if you're looking for a gold secure standard. And I find that sometimes the chain is a little bit easier to attach to bits of street furniture and things, because you get a bit more flexibility in it than you do with a D-lock. Where I live, a lot of the lampposts and things are up against the sides of buildings, and so that can make it quite difficult if you've got pedals sticking out or handlebars sticking out, trying to get your bike up close enough to get a lock, particularly if it's a short one, against your bike and in there can be quite tricky. So there's a few little bits of functionality that I've noticed through using them, and quite a big price range. But the main thing is to make sure that you insure your bike and that you comply with the requirements of your insurance company, so that if the worst does happen, you've got a little bit of paperwork to do, but no sad ending. Thanks for joining us today. Make sure you check out the rest of our videos and stories on singletrackworld.com. I like how this just works. I don't like how the lock is short. I like how this is quite cheap. I don't like how the chain is like a slinky snake and it's always trying to escape me in the garage. I don't like how this one feels kind of plasticky despite the fact that it's sold secure, but I do like the price and that it's light enough to take to the shops. I like that this is really heavy and substantial and feels like I could probably fight off burglars with it as well as locking my bike up securely. But I also don't like that it's expensive and it's really heavy, so too heavy to carry around. I like that this is still working after all these years. It's got the frame protection to not scratch my frame and it's secure, but I don't like that it's actually a little bit stiff to lock, just a bit awkward. God, I'm a nitpicker.